Alright, I think this thing is behaving, just did my checks. We're back, and close enough to having done the last thing, we don't really need to go into any housekeeping. Halo Reach, I wanted to show you that. Now, I've played this before in the Master Chief Collection on Legendary. You see, whole thing beaten. And there's a little overview of what these things, the structure of this game, Noble Actual, the whole first act in the kind of temperate region. Things get gloomy and more extreme. The whole last everything is exploding act. And our little epilogue sequence. 12 missions, and unlike ODST, I don't think they're lying. We get 12 or close to 12. We won't play on Legendary though, that's a bit obnoxious. For our purposes here, we'll do normal. Things will shoot at me a bit, but I won't have to think too much. Noble Actual is the first one. Sorry. Now, about this game, a really interesting thing about it is you can actually customize how your guy looks in Halo Reach, and it will be reflected in the campaign. But in this particular one, what I think I'll do is we'll go with default Mr. Halo Reach here. I think he looks fine, and I believe that as far as they did have an idea of how he's meant to look in the campaign, it was this guy here, the default sort of Spartan guy who looks like a slightly smaller Master Chief in a kind of operatory steel tone pattern. That's what they call it if you go into color. We can mess with it a bit, and go like two tones and change them, the main and the second. And in personalization, no armor, that's the main one. You can mess with his helmet and stuff. But yeah, there's some like very interesting proto-marathon stuff, which is probably the most interesting thing in here. To just see how much actual like old Bungie can come out in these designs. A few of these are very, yeah, like look at the security variants. What does this look like? I'm glad I went into this menu just so that I could show you this. Some interesting little bits of Bungie come out here. I don't know if anything else is really like explicitly a Marathon reference, but no, we won't dress up our guy as Marathon or anything else. We'll play with default Halo Reach, man. I think that they made this the default says something, and it's most in line with what they intended the game to be. And there's a fair bit of personality. We can read a fair bit into how they built him. Like, look at his fucking chest piece. He has like a big tactical knife strapped onto the front that he can pull off operator style. That's what Halo is now. But we'll get more into that in a moment. That's one of the big things I want to start talking about immediately, is how this game in some ways is more wearing military inspiration on its sleeve. But where I would go with that is that it is not actually necessarily a game which dares to draw deeper from military-mindedness. We'll get into that. Let's start with Noble Actual. Very start of the game, let's see what Halo Reach has to show us. So by this point, I believe Jason Jones is not doing too much on Halo. This was Frank O'Connor leading this project, who would, yeah, be the Halo 4 guy, and I actually watched a Halo 5 playthrough finally and really got the impression that actually this game, 4 and 5, in terms of taste and intentions, actually form a kind of coherent trilogy, or could be read as such, even though this is the last Bungie game. But again, we have lots of time. We don't need to go into any housekeeping. We can get into all of that as we go. This planet looks like it has maybe seen better days. That helmet, does that look familiar? Oh, widescreen, I guess it's not important. I like that as an intro, just reach. And that. Dark helmet. All good. It's a very Call of Duty visual, that like looking down at the helmet in your hands and then you put it on while you're inside a Jeep. And there's our little like tactical Jason Bourne time and date thing. Helicopters doing a flyover. We're truly in post Call of Duty Modern Warfare gaming right now. Or even are we? When was this game? Like 2012? Yeah, there's our default armored Spartan. Pretty sure that's what I set him up as.
Contact with Visegrad relay was lost last night. All signals flatlined at 2600 hours. I responded with trooper fire teams, which have since been declared MIA.
And now
the helmetless guys in this look better than ODST by far, I think.
Team is a gross misallocation of valuable resources.
There's our cool Mexican guy.
Commander.
So that's our new number 6.
There's Vasquez.
Cat, you read his file?
Only the parts that weren't covered in black ink.
Ooh, we have black ink on our file. We're a fucking
Only thinks
badass.
it might be the local insurrection. 5 months ago, they pulled a similar job on Harmony. Hit a relay to take out our eyes and ears, then stole 2 freighters from dry dock. That cannot happen here. Reach is too damn important. I want that relay back online, Noble One.
Sir, consider it done.
Then I'll see you on the other side.
That's something I didn't remember. The faces got a lot better across just a couple of games.
I'm Carter. Noble
Or
team's
rather,
leader.
whatever was fucked up about
Noble 2,
ODST
Neil
is no
George
longer
4-5.
happening.
You're riding with me, Noble 6. Not gonna lie to you, Lieutenant. You're stepping into some shoes the rest of the squad would rather leave unfilled. Me, I'm just happy to have Noble back up to full strength.
The body language as well,
Just
like the
one thing,
the physical
I've seen your
acting
file.
looks
Even the parts
not
the only
wrong
censors
anymore.
Didn't want me to. I'm glad to have your skill set. But we're a team. That lone wolf stuff stays behind. Clear? Got it, sir.
Yeah,
Welcome to
we'll
Reach.
see about that. They say this is the fighting as a team game. Halo 5 is actually an entire campaign in which you are never alone, and as I was kind of saying in the ODST videos, Bungie knew not to do that because Halo simply doesn't work when you are surrounded by invincible entities. It just fucking breaks everything. So we'll see if they actually give us constant invincible
Listen up, Noble
teammate
team.
support
We're
in
looking
Halo
at down
Reach.
Relay outpost 50 clicks from Visegrad. We're gonna introduce ourselves to whoever took it out, and then Kat's gonna get it back online.
Get me under the hood, Commander.
Sir, why would rebels want to cut off Reach from the rest of the colonies?
You get a chance, maybe you can ask him, George.
Commander, we just lost our signal with HQ.
Backup channels.
Searching. Nada. Can't say what's jamming us.
You heard her. Dead zone confirmed. Command will not be
Yeah,
keeping us
Nada,
company this trip.
that woman is meant to be Vasquez, she's that type, but actually, interestingly, the actress is Israeli, I believe. So, you know, that's actually funny, it just occurred to me. The actress playing Vasquez was a Jewish lady as well, so twice we have Jewish ladies in brown face playing these cool Mexican operator ladies. But you know, they did the real thing in Halo 2, they got Michelle Rodriguez.
Yes, sir.
Let's stay focused. Watch your sectors.
Oh, have control. Very good. Here's our Call of Duty helicopter drop-off you can look around thing. They brought in these big open transport hornets just to do this.
Could be the missing
Oh,
troopers. Let's check it
and
out.
they're doing the... I forgot they even did that in this game still.
Put us down on the bluff.
They still have the, like, look around and confirm if you want the camera inverted or not thing going, but it's just when you're getting dropped off in the helicopter.
June, I want your eyes in the sky.
I wanted to see if they would keep circling if I refused to say, yes, I like the camera like this, but no, it just takes us down. Okay, but can I refuse to get out of this? There are a few levels in Halo CE you can interestingly break by, like, refusing to get out of the Pelican or trying to get back into it. Yeah, interesting thing. Pelicans have a lot of the properties of the other vehicles in all of the Halo games, and they're just flag to not let you fly them and so on, but you can do some really interesting things by exploiting the fiddliness of how they're rigged up at a few key points where, like at the start and end of a level, they'll briefly flag a pelican as like you can interact with the passenger seats, and yeah, you can do some nonsense at a few points. But alright, let's get out of this.
Alright, noble team, spread out.
Ooh, that's... I'm not crazy about this assault rifle, and I've got my little pistol, which is not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, in general, the tone of this game is, okay, 2000s nerd culture is truly dead. Now we're in, like, more people are gamers culture, but that means games have to reach out and meet them, which means, yeah, movies and Call of Duty is what we are kind of meeting. Our idea of video game player has expanded beyond nerds, so... But considering where nerd culture was at in the 2000s, I want to say that overall, in many ways, the aesthetic impression is actually superior in this game, because... yeah, they're trying to sound like Call of Duty soldiers in cutscenes, and that is a... geez, I tell you, that is a breath of fresh air after ODST. Yeah, and another thought I had just on my mind when talking about the quality of voice acting in this game, Japanese friend of mine who really likes Halo told me to listen to the Halo dubs in Japanese, and you can actually do that in the Master Chief Collection. I could play this whole game in Japanese if I wanted to. You have to download an additional thing from Steam, but the language packs are up. Halo Reach is what he showed me, this game's Japanese dub, and Halo works very well dubbed into Japanese. Like, the actors know what to do when you give it to them. They just sound like they're in a Mamoru Oshii movie or something. They do the kind of anime archetype voices, but they work very, very well. While in this, they were reaching into the nerd pile. They sound like they're on the fucking sci-fi channel in ODST, but the acting tradition, style, direction, intent very clearly shifts to, like, Call of Duty, Hollywood, quote-unquote, realism, which works pretty well. It's not the specific vision of what Halo was, like, 20 years ago. Well, not 20, like 10 ago at this time with Halo CE, but it's a respectable new thing to make it. And in general, this whole scene is just respectable and nice. Again, something Bungie did really well pretty much all the time. ODST, the sky is red for like the whole bloody game, with a few like yellow, nice like hazy days as well, but now we're back at the like Delta Halo stuff in Halo 2 where Reach is very overcast, which is very, very nice. We get these nice kind of cool blue-gray afternoons. This is really pretty. I like this a lot. And the scenery of Reach is very nice, how they make it look like, yeah, they don't need to settle every inch of the damn planet. Like, there are just pockets where they set up something useful, and then you just have this like very natural kind of desolate wilderness on the fringes beyond that. It's a very pleasing and compelling image of colonization and settlement in the future. Like, yeah, even on a primary planet, it would just make sense that on a place like Reach, like, most of the surface of the planet is just, like, yeah, primordial. I only just noticed you can actually read what's in the bottom right of my viewfinder thing here. Range for 90-degree FOV calibration. And Spartan 3 BIOS. And something in binary there, I wonder what that says. But anyway, yes, Spartan 3. We aren't as big as the Master Chief, and this team, they're settled people who know their stuff, but we're the next generation of super soldiers in lore and so on. But what exactly a Spartan 3 is, what they were always meant to be, is kind of messed with by this game compared to the Eric Nyland novels, which came beforehand, which I believe were drawing on older original Bungie plans, which presumably means, like, what Jason Jones, Joseph Staten, Rob McLeese, and so on worked out between them. Maybe this original picture was something that, like, you know, Troutman and Nyland worked out between them, but I don't think so, given that it's such a central premise of the last Nyland novel and really just casts such a particular light on so many things in the Halo universe. I think it's too central and important to not be something Jason Jones personally thought out. I'll just tell you, we are the Spartan 3s in this game, which means we are kind of the post-Master Chief AA as opposed to AAA soldiers. A bit less important, we have to work together more. The original plan for the Spartan 3s was that they were an entirely different class of thing. They were basically more mass-produced shock troops who were, like, very explicitly intended to go on to be sent on suicide missions. And more than that, the most important and striking detail about them was that they were all children. Like, the ages of the Spartan 3s when they started training was meant to be something like 8 to 13. And on their first mission, I believe that this is the prologue of the last novel, which is all about the Spartan 3s, their relationship with a couple of the Spartan 2s and Oni in the military and so on. It's sort of like an evil Starship Troopers, that last novel, Ghosts of Onyx, I believe it's called. Anyway, the whole prologue of that, they don't tell you the characters' ages until the end, but it's about this Spartan 3 suicide mission to destroy Covenant infrastructure, which succeeds, but yeah, they fire off like 50 or 100. They all just attack in this devastating wave with no regard for themselves. Not in the sense of like enemy at the gates, oorah shit, where they all just like dive a machine gun and die, but like the odds are so against them that even though they're good, they just all die. And 2 of them get away, and like the ending to the prologue of that novel is something like they were 12 and 13 years old. Like, that's the kind of war they're fighting, and of course, if you've listened to me the whole way through, the idea of child soldiers, then it's very important. They aren't like kidnapped slaves. The idea is that, but rather than a picked pool, they offer the opportunity to war orphans. Like, I think another point in the novel is like how they trained that wave of Spartans, that they, like a ship carrying children that got away from a planet right before it was blown away, like all of them get taken in, and it's like, okay, emergency training exercise right now. We're going to give you a chance to get them back for your parents, but you have to demonstrate balls and resolve by parachuting out of a plane. That offers here right now, one-time offer. If you do that, you're in. And yeah, like most of them do that, and that's how you become a Spartan, and it's very... Yes, the fact that they would write that in, that you basically... child suicide soldiers who are there of their own volition, that's very... That shouldn't surprise you if you've listened to me and you understand, in the same way I do, what Halo is, what it's about. But yes, then they turned it into... Again, why I think that this game actually exists on a pretty coherent trajectory with Halo 4 and 5. The Spartan 4s are just the, like, logical conclusion of the sensibilities that created this team, where it's like a desire to have, like, cool themed Halo operator people where being a Spartan doesn't really mean anything more than being a kind of cool cape shit Power Ranger operator who blows up the bad guy aliens. It's not, you know, all a product of one far deeper idea and expression with any kind of pathos. It's just Halo as a kind of shallow brand and aesthetic. The guys put on the Halo armor and go fight the Covenant because that's what you do. I would say that already, in a rather fundamental way, the premise is undermined as soon as we hit the ground in Halo Reach. Nice craftsmanship all over. Not every aesthetic pivot is bad, but that's something you don't know unless you're an artist like me, that the Spartan 3s here are very sanded down from the original idea of what that meant, what they were going for. There are no longer... By, like, Halo Reach, in the canon of the games, there are maybe no longer canon, like, suicide shock troop waves of like drugged up teenagers being sent to go slow the Covenant down. You might say, okay, Anthony, that's kind of reasonable. That's a bit like absurd. Maybe that autist Eric Nyland got carried away. I don't know, maybe, but I think that the, yes, teenage suicide shock troops were fucking awesome, and that's the kind of like Western shunny shit that really, you know, is why Jason Jones is something else. He's built differently. And yeah, when you take away a mine that is capable of generating something like that, at first the drift is subtle. You might not even notice the difference. It's, you know, you get operator opening cutscenes and, you know, teams of mature, serious people, no more jokey myth character lines where people joke when they friendly fire and stuff. Yeah, maybe that's alright, but, you know, it's only a hop, a skip, and a jump from here to Buck coming back as a fucking Spartan 4 in Halo 5. God, Halo 5 is just an atrocity. But yes, the thing I kept bringing up, I was watching a bit of it with friends actually, just to help me get through it. A point I kept wanting to bring up is that the fact Halo Infinite abandons everything that happened in Halo 5, I really don't mind Infinite, by the way, I can go into that later. The fact that Infinite abandoned Halo 5 and the stuff Joseph Staten has said about working at this company, 343, it really sounds like what happened in Halo 5 was largely a product of them just kind of like, you know, the thing just took built inertia as they started making it, and basically nobody had the necessary vision or passion to correct this thing once it was rolling, and it was so big that, like, there's no real tangible lever you can grab to, like, seriously pivot this thing. Like, the bad ideas just kind of started rolling, and you end up with this surreal nothing game that pleases nobody, where you aren't doing anything, nothing happens, it's all just ugly and ridiculous. But that is not what Halo Reach is. The similarity this has in terms of being a game that you play to Halo 5, though, is interesting, and something that I'll talk about when we start firing the guns. But yes, for a minute we can briefly admire this colony scene. Look, some stuff got blown up. But yeah, the set design here reminds me of, like, this vision of, like, a gritty colonization and science fiction. This is like Ridley Scott's Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and maybe also that TV show Raised by Wolves, if you saw that.
Negative, but it's military.
So where are the troopers?
Oh geez, something's wrong, guys.
Noble 3, can you confirm any EX residue in the area?
Negative, sir. Plasma, maybe.
Can't be. Not on Reach.
Again, science fiction aesthetics taking on this tone of, like, harder realism. I think that science fiction did, like, kind of practical realism the best in the 20th century when, you know, like, nerds were still craftsmen and artists. And then it kind of receded into puerile retardation in the very early 20th century, when you basically had nerds who only had a superficial understanding of the more sophisticated stuff from the 20th century coming into their own and making things. You know, guys who might like Ridley Scott, but they don't understand the ideas that drive his films, and they aren't familiar with the things Ridley Scott was familiar with that would place it in a more coherent cultural context from which they would get more from it. And then those aesthetics kind of get rationalized as they reach Hollywood, and people are just less tolerant of weird shit. What I mean is there's an aesthetic rationalization of the idea of science fiction in the early 2010s, which didn't necessarily come from a place of better people getting the wheel. It was just, you know, having to sell to normal people, but nerds were kind of fallen people by this point, so that was actually a slight improvement in many cases. And yeah, Jason Jones's Halo, he was more like a nerd of a couple of generations back. He's like Ridley Scott, he is familiar with the content of real books, so, you know, careful messing with particulars of his designs in particular is the trouble. Halo Reach, interesting example of basically very thoughtful and ideas-driven science fiction design starting to become more generically rationalized, and it's not immediately obvious what's wrong with that. But, you know, let me put on my Loeb hat for a moment. Basically everything Jason Jones worked on is a kind of Chesterton's fence. You probably shouldn't fuck with it, like, it's a rare case in his video games where basically everything is like that for a reason in a way that's not really true of most other ones. You know, fuck with any given detail like Killzone or whatever, like that matters. It could all be one thing or another, but Halo is very, very deliberate, as I've said over and over again. Now, are these ostriches or space ostriches? I never bothered to look too close at them. But yeah, there actually are. They finally put wildlife in a Halo game substantially with Reach. He doesn't want to hold still and give me a look at his head, so I can't quite tell what he is. Are you meant to be an alien bird? I think you are. Anyway, I like this guy just fine. Yeah, he has like bones at the end of his wings. Good on him. But yeah, I guess that those are meant to be domestic farm animals. Wait, actually, maybe not. They look a bit tough. Anyway, there's animals running around, stuff is on fire, our recon team is missing. Clearly something has gone wrong. Noble 6 have to get on the job. Look at that nice misty cliff. And those mountains in the distance. This is ominous, this is cool. Isn't that right, Carter? Yeah, all of the Spartan 3s on this team, they have a customization trend across their gear. They're veterans, they've picked up different bits as they go. Their gear is full of character. Cat had an arm blown off. The other guy's got something carved into his faceplate because he's Mexican. Not his faceplate, his visor. This is very, like, early Modern Warfare scene, like one of the SAS levels. You go into a house and it's all quiet.
Noble leader, I'm seeing heat sigs in the structure ahead.
There's the scratched into visor guy.
They're not rebels, they're farmers. Look at them.
Ask them what they're doing here.
Hiding, sir. Neighbors were attacked last night. He heard screams, gunfire, stopped around sunrise. Says something in the fields killed his son.
Something.
Commander, be advised, I'm reading heat signatures in that structure directly east of your position. Over.
Copy that. Get them back inside.
Osman Tom Bepoli, getting?
Yes, there are a few civilians in Halo 3 in that silly warehouse battle sequence, guys who just exist to get knocked around by hunters, but civilian presence is a much more substantial thing in Halo Reach. You'll see what's going on with that in a few later levels. But yeah, there's again, another like gritty 2010 core detail that they speak the civilians are like Hungarian or something, and that's meant to be exotic by the standards of the time. The idea of like Central and Eastern Europeans being like a weird, surprising thing to come across, that feels very quaint now that they want to shove the whole planet down your throat. Oh dear, what happened to this guy?
Damn.
Fill me in, Commander. What are you seeing? Over.
We've got military casualties, 2 of the missing troopers. Looks like they were interrogated. It's messy.
Now, they made this confusing by reusing the models for Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, but I believe the idea why they look different in this game is that they actually aren't Marines, they're army troopers. These are just like on-the-ground army guys who are garrisoned on Reach. So, you know, their kit is different to Marines, and I would imagine actually less sophisticated. Like Marines, the guys who are like launched at the Covenant in space, are the ones most likely to actually fight the Covenant.
June, you see anything?
Whereas you would expect like army garrisons, given the way that wars are written in Halo, though that was changing by this point, there wouldn't be a lot of use for conventional army because this is mostly a space war, and if there's going to be substantial like on-the-ground combat, it will be like a picked, particular, still relatively limited thing with more specialized forces. So yeah, like ODSTs and Marines, it would be, and of course the Spartans, the logic just makes sense that rather than a big conventional army, you would be having these limited forces, limited deployments.
I see movement outside your structure. Noble 2, move up to the west. We're about to be flanked.
Huh? Damn it! Covenant!
What is that?
Contact!
Target's in sight. Here we go.
Oh no! What's going on? Who are we fighting? Yes, of course we know, it's the Covenant, they're on Reach, but they're off playing like horror movie villains at a farmstead instead of, you know, just like immediately raising this important human infrastructure. And here's... You might not recognize these guys right away, but that's, those are jackals without shields. That was something they experimented with in this game. Jackal skirmishers. And the design-wise, they're halfway to Halo 4, but not quite there. They wanted them to be bulkier, uglier, and scarier, but there's a decent justification in this game that I don't want to hold against them. The whole premise of fighting the Covenant in this game is that, like, even the Jackals don't speak anymore. Like, by Halo 3, the Elites are speaking, and, you know, the Brutes speak English, and they wanted them to be, you know, they know you're familiar with them by this point, and they wanted to give them more character. But the way that they present the aliens in Halo Reach all the way through this game is that they want them to be alien again, so the grunts are still wacky. They didn't turn them into, like, ugly, ridiculous, made-out-of-stone things. But grunts no longer speak English. They have this, like, angry, hissy, raspy language, and they generally, you know, they're still kind of ridiculous and contemptible as they're meant to be, but, you know, they aren't kind of as reassuring as they used to be. Like, they don't have a line ready to fire off every time that will just, like, make you laugh and, you know, put you in familiar territory. You know, it's like you're surrounded by people who speak, so you aren't...
Cheer up, big man. This whole valley just turned into a free fire zone.
Damn, that's badass, bro. Are you our Staff Sergeant Griggs?
Boss, I'm showing more activity to the east.
Copy that, June. We're on it. 6, got point.
But, yeah, so what was I saying? Yes, this isn't a, like, isolated lone wolf mission, as the guy told us at the start, but this is a... They want it to be very much, you think of yourself as one side and the Covenant as the other. Like, the Covenant are not company like they were in the old games. They want you to feel more integrated on one end and more alienated on the other. You are much more integrated into the human war machine now. You're a Spartan who fights in a squad, and the battle for Reach is much more that the Spartan 3s fight alongside conventional forces are participating in more conventional military activity, more collective action. Oh, I just realized, because that reminded me, we actually have health pips under our shield in this one again as well, which is nice. Again, I think they wanted him to feel a bit weaker. You can get hurt over the course of a mission. And yeah, again, because carrying a whole goddamn team at once is silly, we start splitting up pretty regularly and spend the whole game doing this. Can I come? No? Okay, let's go. How many of us are going this way? 2 of us? 3 of us? Oh, I'm going with this guy in particular. Okay. Oh no, 3 of us. Now, what I just said, it's a good opportunity to get into this. Look at our improvised warthog. Oh, and did I grab one of these? Yes, I did. We can watch George do his setup again now. Now, I said it's a bit silly and a bit strange that the Covenant are basically playing like grey alien serial killers at a farmstead on Reach. Like, they found a center of human... Controller unplugged for a second there. They found a center of human military activity. Why aren't, like, warships just immediately vaporizing this place? It gets into where I was going, that they're kind of trying to... What's going on with Bungie is that they are guys who had a... Rebels don't leave plasma burns. They've changed the framing, it's no longer the classic, like, Bungie letterboxing thing with that, but they do still keep the chapter titles. They tried to use the, like, chapter titles in Halo 5, and they were terrible, I found, but what's going on in this game, I'll just get this thought out and then we'll keep going. Old Bungie were extremely ahead of the curve in that they were nerds, but specifically they had military nerds, the biggest one being Jason Jones, but also Rob McLeese, and they were very particular. They had already done the work which most of the industry has still yet to do, where they understood what was real about cool militaries, and then they went further and thought of how to rationalize that into things that would be cool as a video game. And then they went the step further and wrote a kind of ludo-harmonic series of premises in which you get to do the cool shit, the cool video game shit, married to conceptually cool video game shit, in a way in which neither treads on the toes of the other. Where, like, the way that myth is written, when people say, "Did you know it was inspired by the Black Company?" what they mean is, because they're idiots who don't read, books are just like a totem to them and they're all the same. The idea that, like, a guy who read a book in which military stuff happens is exciting if you're a Mandalore viewer. But what's really going on there, Jason Jones is a fan of many more things. Again, they didn't even go that far. Who was inspired by the Black Company? Who read that book? Answer me. Jason Jones reads lots of things, especially a lot of non-fiction about military affairs. And that, I think, is what people are trying to refer to when they gibber about the Black Company. That, like, oh, they refer to things like, you know, maintaining pickets, supply lines, having to keep men fed, and, you know, the orders of battle and so on. And, like, Halo Combat Evolved opens with a reference to, like, the Covenant having recon pickets when they move their fleets. Very advanced stuff. This was a guy who was more into military stuff before culture started moving that way, like, much more so than the guys who made Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And what he did, what the premise of every Jones game is, okay, how do I think up a fantastical scenario in which it makes sense for cool military guys, cool military things, to be acting out these little video game scaled scenarios in which what I have determined to be the strengths of this medium can shine. Jason Jones looks at, like, contemporary battlefields, and what he decides is cool is, okay, what if there was a virtual Jeep that had, like, really entertaining bouncy interactions with 3D terrain that we can model really well because we're Bungie, we're awesome. And, you know, what's fun? I think that about 5 on 5 is a fun lineup of guys who are bouncy and wacky and get launched by grenades and stuff, and ideally we have, like, slower projectiles. I think those are better. And so on. Do you see where I'm going, where it's like, he knows what a real battle looks like, that it doesn't make sense, things like the Warthog. There's a reason they don't exist in real wars, because of, you know, the way that guns work, the way that armies are organized. It doesn't make sense. Real wars don't shake out into, like, a warehouse, 5 guys on 5, and they're jumping around riding grenades and launching each other into the air and all of that nonsense. There are no points where, like, jeeps firing machine guns at each other are a... You know, that stuff isn't happening in Ukraine. But it happens in the universe of Halo. But if you think about it, especially in the first game, the fact that that's happening at all is actually kind of only facilitated by a few extremely specific circumstances. The implication is not, oh, war always looks like this in the world of Halo. Like, no, it's very explicitly, most war is, rationalized. It's Ukraine shit. It's the most efficient means of delivering large numbers of explosives towards the enemy. It's a spaceship war. And the Spartans, they're all just like written in to justify this more traditional combat, which is more what human beings find satisfactory, which is again kind of the whole meta point of this whole thing. But there's a meta point in the construction of Halo, which is... A friend of mine intuitively brought this up when I was streaming, I think, modded Halo Combat Evolved, just for a few people recently. He said that the scale of combat in Halo reminded him of the Iliad, that kind of heroic age where you have a few key actors just blowing away the kind of NPCs between them, and, chariots, decisive charges, the ability for one person to really swing things one way or another, and I had already had this thought before that, so I'm like, yes, exactly. The whole point of the Jason Jones game, as we've already said, the Spartan program, it's a deliberate invocation of the classical world, the classical ideal of heroism and warfare and human satisfaction. The whole premise of Halo is, of course, that is what we like, that is what we are built for, but, in-universe, what is the premise specifically of Combat Evolved? That the circumstances align so that the Master Chief is thrown into a situation where he is able to fight exactly like that. Because for this to happen, you have to have the Halo ring, which the Covenant considers sacred, so they won't fire artillery at it from space. They have to land people on the ground. And the human crew of the Pillar of Autumn are scattered into very small numbers, so there's no big stand-up fight where, like, they line up tanks or fire drones at each other or anything. It's basically a weird impromptu guerrilla war that the surviving crew have to wage, which is the only reason why, like, warthogs are really relevant. I know you see them in the hangar of the Pillar of Autumn, but, you have to bear with them a bit. It's a video game, it still is a bit inherently silly, but I think that around the time of Combat Evolved, they probably would not have written, if you left it up to them, the idea of, like, warthogs charging into battle as a normal thing. Like, it's very much a kind of what we're doing right now, like a weird guerrilla tactic which only exists in what you would assume to be rationally very rare scenarios in which small numbers are able to fight with a kind of unleashed impunity against other small forces on the ground, which is the most fun way to build a video game, absolutely, but in any kind of halfway serious and informed universe, you either throw up your hands and say, yeah, this shit is happening because it's fun, or if you're like Jason Jones in the early days, you really put your head to it and you think out the premise in a way that justifies it in this particular case. And yeah, Halo Combat Evolved is really the only Halo game that nails this, but it was always an ideal they had in mind that, yes, what we could call the heroic scale of combat was the ideal, and yeah, Jason Jones knows his military stuff very well. But yes, they know military stuff very well, which is why there isn't that much of... Which is why... Sorry. Are you following me? The intention was always faithfully represent the spirit of military stuff and create, inherently gratifying game-scaled scenarios, and ideally do one without messing with the other. Write something which is fun as a video game, which, justifiably we can fit into a kind of military logic, and I think the real brilliance of the Halo Combat Evolved scenario is how it does that. And the original premise of the Fall of Reach, what happened at this point in the Halo story, is that Yeah, the fall of Reach takes like 30 minutes. The Covenant arrive, and then they blow up everything. Humanity's defenses that are prepared already are able to punish them pretty hard, blow holes in a lot of things, but it doesn't swing things. A few Spartans are on the ground trying to keep the defenses online so they can blow up more Covenant, but mostly it's just kind of hopeless. This game really is the Bungie throwing up their hands to justify more happening approach to building a scenario where it's like, okay, military, the more we show you, the more any kind of logic, let alone like hard military practicality in concerns, has to be thrown away. But the justification, which you really can't argue with, is, but we wanted to show you more, we decided we wanted to do a Reach game. So I can't really fault them on this, it's just, if you ever found certain parts of this game's presentation inelegant, I hope that what I have just said is able to more usefully frame that thought and help you better appreciate what's going on with Halo Combat Evolved. That it's very much, okay, a man who understood military affairs very carefully wrote a series of scenarios in which you could do wacky, bouncy, video gamey type stuff, Mario 64 with guns, and it makes the difference and feels relatively, you know, not incongruent. It all broadly fits a consistent idea. Now this game, though, we're in like the heavier operator culture, but also, you know, if this is a war between spacefaring civilizations, why are we fighting on the ground, mounting a fucking minigun on a jeep to create an improvised technical? Why aren't they just fucking nuking us? The answer is because it's a video game. But in the case of Halo Combat Evolved, the answer is not because it's a video game. The answer is, oh, you know, the ring is sacred, so they can't do that. Which is much more thoughtful. And of course, Myth is doing the same thing. Myth is a story of a civilization fighting for its life. It's implied that in places where you aren't looking, there are these giant Lord of the Rings battles, where these giant total war formations are clashing. We've Austin Powers ourselves, get out, people. That's incredible. Okay, they can fight in there while I find another way in. But yes, the whole premise of Myth is again this heroic ideal of combat where you have, you know, coherently scaled groups instead of total war blocks. You have like 30 on 30 is about the size of a Myth level, something like that, like any given encounter.
We were attacked by Covenant forces. The Covenant is on reach. I repeat, the Covenant is on reach.
The troopers?
That's a cool line and moment. The Covenant is on reach.
We don't leave people behind. You see those troopers, you let me know.
It's very much...
Noble leader, I'm seeing possible friendly forces under attack northeast of your position.
Again, it's all a decent justification.
Mayday, 3 Charlie 6. We are under attack by the Covenant. I got wounded. Cannot hold this.
Sorry if I sound like I'm disrespecting the premise. You're really meant to play this game in a rush like a Call of Duty campaign. It's how it's built, but... yes, it's very much... the premise of Myth is, again, like Halo Combat Evolved, where he can do it more directly, like just pull from his Julius Caesar or whatever because of the scale and level of technology in Myth. It's more, he can have you doing realistic maneuvers that just happen to exist on the fringes of warfare instead of the big sexy battles. They're like, every level in Myth, you're a member of like a picket, or you're scouting, or you're a distraction or something. Anyway, his point is always that he wants you to be like 50 guys at the most doing some relatively smaller action in which any given individual act could be decisive, which is very much what he considers sexy, that heroic scale, and what you can actually build a coherent video game level out of. Very thoughtful and difficult stuff, but they managed to do it a few times pretty well. Myth 1 and Halo Combat Evolved being the greatest successes. Myth 2, like Halo 2, has to kind of reach to do some sillier things because it wants to justify keeping the show going. but it also has the best level about this. There's a whole... No one will ever comment on this but me, but there's a whole meta level in Myth 2 where you have to play a game to impress one of the primordial Prometheus man race that exists in Myth, the Trowel. To get them on your side, you have to play a kind of sacred death game with them.
We know, Corporal. Let's get you out of here.
Yeah, here's what our army men look like. I think this guy has a painted face. Yeah, we're in the real Call of Duty shit now. Oh, I'm getting shot at. I have to play the game a little bit and then we'll get back to them. But yes, it's very... If you want to know what I mean by, like, the idea of combat at a certain scale being, like, sacred or deeply important, like, that, to convince you that that's not an arsepull, I can just say, like, play Myth 2, get to the level where you have to meet the Trowel, and just think about what it is that they're asking you to do. Think of the implications of that, and, you know, take it for granted I'm asking of you that, like, the Trowel were written with, like, serious intentions, that they weren't just like a generic fantasy world bad man race, that Jones is smarter than that there is purpose and intention behind the presence of the Trowel in that story, that you should take everything said about them seriously. And then in their, like, key bit of representation, what their world, what their social like, what their values are like, look at what they ask you to do and think of what that could mean. These guys do not want to let me look at them. But yeah, again, I think that in Halo, the remake, the first remake, anniversary, because this stuff is so stupid. Yeah, he has face paint on, Call of Duty Ghost Recon, man. I think in the Combat Evolved anniversary, they used these models but took their backpacks off. Whereas, like, the backpacks are what render them legible. The idea is that they are... like army troopers, they're loaded out to like potentially spend a few days in the field. Why they would have guys dressed up like that on Reach is kind of anybody's guess, but that's what they are. Again, the scale of combat doesn't quite make sense in this game, but we bear with it because we wanted to see more Halo. Like how Myth 2 gets a bit strange.
Okay, we're en route to your location.
It's a big gun. Little stencils on it we can admire while we fly. Or the whole sky thing. Look, the war is starting, a few things are blown up here and there. For whatever reason, the Covenant really felt it important to blow up that bridge. Again, no more of that nice overcast stuff that the old Bungie style did really well. A lot of Xbox 360 games really aged atrociously, but no, Reach still looks pretty good. I would actually say that on the whole this game probably looks better than ODST just because it doesn't have the weird, fucked up cartoony stuff going on. Okay, now we get one of the, what I'm pretty sure are actually kind of rare squad fight moments where we actually fight with our people. Oh yeah, for a second I was looking at that guy's DMR. I'll look at it properly when I get one, but yeah, some of the guns got kind of unpleasantly rationalized here. I think the idea they had with the assault rifle after the first game is that because the SMG exists, the assault rifle, instead of firing 5.56, now we're firing like big scary 308. And that's a fun idea to bring it back, just it kind of lacks this sense of impact that really sells that compared to like firing the FAL in Rising Storm 2. But it's okay. The way that they disconnected the, you know, the ammo counter computer bit from the rest of the gun's ergonomic shell is very lame, I think. They want it to look like an attachment, I can tell what they were doing, but like, the gun with this detached doesn't make any sense, but you know, it was like 2011, so they thought the idea of like a holographic sight was the coolest thing ever. So they're like, okay, make it look like they stuck something on top of a rail for the assault rifle. I get why they did that, but it is just... Again, like, that's kind of the whole aesthetic and my assessment overall of what Halo Reach is, that it's a lot of things that superficially seem more military core and hardcore, but if you actually understand what Bungie were doing, this is actually just kind of shallow and silly. Which is unfortunate, but you know. Again, it's still coherently a product of its time, so it's something I can look at and, you know, get something from. I can think about it and, like, understand the intentions. It's not just, like, sheer incompetence, ugliness, and failure like Halo 4 and 5. This is coherently trying to do something else, and that something else is not as sophisticated as it might have liked to think itself. I would actually be curious looking into who was working on the guns in this. Like, was Rob McLeese just, like, out at this point doing something else? I should look into that, but yes, like, the Rob McLeese original design for the assault rifle, he did that before the FN-2000, or whatever it's called, the real gun that looks like it, before he heard about that, because, again, he was thinking practically to the point where he basically predicted the future of guns before, as it was happening, while this just looks... Sorry, I'm not holding that assault rifle, but in general, these things are just kind of, like, over-designed. They aren't, like... Again, it's like the whole approach to constructing a war scenario. The old versions of Halo guns were people who understood this stuff very deeply, meeting the requirements of what would make for a good video game in the middle after a very careful and thoughtful process, while this is just kind of like vulgar movie fan. We're going to make it hardcore military, and, you know, the game construction itself is riding vestigially on Halo, like the visual design, but if you let them build the game, like, scenario-wise from scratch without Halo CE and the rest for reference, they would have built Halo 5, which feels the most like a Call of Duty campaign in the sense that what you're doing is just quickly running through very busy but not really thought out or substantial areas with too much going on to feel like you are really deciding any scenario so much as just, like, doing your game chore in each area to get to the next one. It's a very subtle thing what makes these things work, and that subtlety is what the Bungie team thought out very carefully. Of course, Jason Jones most carefully of all, the man with his own idiosyncratic definitions of fun and what would be satisfying in a video game. Jamie Griesmer recently said something very interesting. He said that reading the terminals in Marathon again, he said that it feels like talking to Jason Jones and getting instructions from him. That's the first time I've heard that explicitly, someone saying that Durandal reminds them of Jones, but it's the first reference I've really heard of anybody identifying a specific character with Durandal, and I can't really think of an immediately recognizable parallel in fiction, so it really does seem like, yes, as far as Durandal is anything, he might be the Jason Jones self-insert. But yes, more importantly than that is just, again, someone has thought out all of this, and if Reach still feels faithful, it's maybe not because they understand so much as they are just vestigially bound, and you can see them starting to drift in their own way, and everything that is their way rather than the original Bungie, which is to say Jones' way, is bad, which is, again, why I think that this game is kind of the beginning of the Reach 4, 5 trajectory of eventual total decline. But we could even say that, if we wanted to be really harsh, we could say that ODST and 3 are also that, because, again, they aren't really Jones's games. The last one he's director on is 2, I believe, but, you know, where things really clearly take off, like, 2 and 3 are just finishing business, and then, you know, after that it's really someone else's thing, ODST finishing business again. Hey, that guy's alive. sorry, but yes, where it really feels like Halo has finished its immediate business of, like, basically doing what Halo CE was doing, but more of it to get to the ending for the Master Chief. This is really, like, new projects in the Halo world, the first attempt at that, and it does, again, make sense to me that Frank O'Connor was able to direct this game, this production, and then the absolute shit show that was 4. If anything, this probably emboldened him and made that possible to a massive degree. He thought, yeah, I put a fair bit of my own sensibilities into this. There's a fair bit of me in here. I'm qualified to run this. I'm not the butt monkey gopher of Bungie. I'm a real creative force to be reckoned with. I was like a lead figure in the production of Halo Reach, which everyone agrees is just as good as the old one, so everyone just stand back. This is going to be the Frank O'Connor game. It's going to be a masterpiece. And it's a complete disaster because the super intelligence who was kind of the rest of the iceberg, who understood the inner workings that made these things work, so much which is unstated even as principle. We have to coin these things, like, I call the combat heroic scaled. I doubt they wrote that or anything else that means the same thing on like a big whiteboard in Bungie headquarters. I think if you were designing levels, that's just something that Jason Jones impresses upon you by going on some kind of Durandal monologue while you kind of nod along if you're working there. Like the whole thing that, I think Joseph Staten, I remember him saying this a lot, that like 30 seconds of fun or 8 seconds of fun. I think that what they're getting at in that is the kind of heroic scale thing, that thing of like, okay, you quickly assess a situation, you react, you exercise extraordinary agency in some kind of decisive way. That is what Halo is about, and you have to think, like, is that not just what you're doing in every video game? I really think not, in the terms that I just put it, that you assess the state of things, what's at hand, what your capabilities are, exercise extraordinary agency, and do something decisive. That's what you're doing constantly in Halo, but it's not what you are doing constantly in Halo 4 and 5, and it is definitely not what you are doing in something I consider an unplayable shitfest like the Call of Duty World at War campaign, which I absolutely loathe, basically for exactly this reason. When people do kind of crass realism, again, Jason Jones, I'm sure, has read more books on World War II than everyone who worked on Call of Duty World at War put together, including quite probably their historical reference guys, if they had any. You know, I'm sure they got like a guy with a PhD on the Eastern Front. He's probably read less about Stalingrad than Jason Jones. But anyway, where was I going? Yes, you can make a realistic war game, but you know, you've really kind of pissed on what's actually fun or compelling about war and why people wish they could do that instead of working their lame zob. If your idea of like, oh, we make our realistic war game is just grenades should fly at you constantly and instantly kill you if they go off near you, and every weapon is hit scan because bullets are fast, and you just die instantly, and then we make a gay, nonsensical concession to reality against reality where you just recover from bullet wounds very quickly while the screen goes ugly puke red and you can't discern anything that's happening. That is just thoughtlessly throwing shit at the wall to make, and as far as that's kind of an incidentally fun, it's because looking over the barrel of your virtual gun and going bang, bang, and watching guys fall down is fun. That's doing all of the work, really, and lifting sequences from war movies. There is actually, I would go as far as to say, not even a compelling game in the frame of the later Call of Duty campaigns. They're actually just complete failures, I would put it. While, no, Halo really actually did the work. How do you make a fun, gun-based war game? You have to make all of these specific concessions. You need higher times to kill. You need exaggerated wuxia gravity. You need, you know, extremely high agency, the ability to make extremely decisive decisions. That needs to be happening constantly, a constant cycle of assessment, planning, and action happening so quickly you don't even think of it as planning, but you're doing more than reacting. This kind of tactical, scaled action. it's not what real war is like, but there is a kernel of the real thing in there, and we got there from the study of the real thing, whereas what the other war games of this period were doing were just kind of like shitting out vulgar recreations of the real thing, with concessions made only to it being something you can beat, really. Like, is Call of Duty Modern Warfare or World at War, is it a compelling game, or is it realistic, or is it a movie? It's kind of all of them at once and bad at being all of them, while Halo really did the like, oh, I'm going to go to YouTube Good Game Design University and figure out what's logical and satisfying. They did all of that before anyone had fucking shit out the anti-thought game design and started thinking in the abstract about what is generally pleasing to do in a video game. Fucking Jason Jones thought that through to its conclusion and created a pretty much perfect form the first time he tried making a truly 3D first-person shooter. Of course, with Marathon, they could just kind of follow Doom, but with more sophisticated online game modes and architecture. Because, you know, they were still a small team, they could only do so much with the tech, but even then, I think if you actually think of it as a game, Marathon is much better than Doom in some ways. Basically just the online stuff, so it's really... You can't call it just a, oh, they happen to be their first thing with, like, the success of Halo 2. No, these were very smart people who were always very good at online. Though, of course, I know the story of Halo 2's online, that they had way more ambitious plans that didn't work out, so we had to settle for what we got, which was still nice, but it was meant to be a much more ambitious thing before it turned into party game of run around shooting people. But always the ambition was crazy and execution was very good at Bungie, and I've probably talked about this before. What set Marathon apart as an online deathmatch game, and still largely does because no one copies them because they're just too goddamn good, the thing that you can do in Marathon is turn on bots in each level, which are different, and you get these, like, fighting factions of NPCs blowing each other up, and you have your, like, deathmatch game or whatever within that, and it's really fucking awesome. Yeah, great people. Just Jason Jones, always a pioneer, always basically marrying appreciation of military aesthetics and innate appeal with, you know, inherently pleasing kinetics, tactility, what is actually fun in a video game, the abstract good game design science. He bloody invented it and completed it through practice, and nobody trying to, like, reverse engineer principles by observing video games in general has come up with a way to basically improve what he made. Like, there are no better good game design informed first-person shooters. Jason Jones won, so yeah, everyone on YouTube, Matthew Matos's go massage his art fag, he won. Yeah, what has game design given us? I guess they've given us Ultra Kill. Thanks.
It sounded bad on the comms.
All right, Corporal. Stay put. We'll get you a combat surgeon.
Damn. Plasma damage.
Found something.
I'll take that, 6. Not your domain.
I got a live one over here.
Sorry if I got into a abstract talk there. I can actually play and appreciate the game next.
It's all right. We're not gonna hurt you.
George.
I got her. Keep still, and I'll release you.
He can speak Hungarian, so why didn't he do that then? Oh well. This cutscene, again, is, things looking a bit silly because they want to have stuff happen. They wanted a CQC scene. Oh look, they're taking hostages. It's like Call of Duty Black Ops.
-4, stay on the entrance. 2, handle her. 5 and 6, clear the hole.
But yeah, like, the way they have to make elites move when they have swords to not instantly vaporize us in close quarters is very silly. They sort of do the, like, ODST... They sort of do an ODST wobbly toddler walk because, again, like, the ergonomics of movement, the possibilities of a sword like the one they're carrying, they would just vaporize us. It just makes sense. So they have to basically be nerfed for the purposes of this cinematic scene that they were very insistent on having. They wanted a elite honor guard to get in our face and roar at us, and yeah, you have to think, like, rationally, does it make sense that that would happen? That someone with a, like, lightsaber-type man vaporizer weapon, we would be in close quarters for an extended period of time with them? No, but they do their best to swing it. They have it, the whole reason there's a guy alive in that scene is so that the honor guard can grab him as a hostage, so that they can justify any kind of sustained contact between Spartans and elites that doesn't end with someone getting their head cut off in like 2 seconds. Which again, I don't mind though. That's almost the thing I was talking about with heroic scale, where like they wanted it to happen and they did their best to, you know, rationalize it and marry the aesthetic premise with the, you know, idea of what they thought was cool. They thought, we want to have elite combats in a kind of close-up fight with... Yeah, exactly. That's... Why didn't they do that when the cutscene was happening? Well, they tried very hard to justify it, and what they landed on was, okay, they just have to walk kind of stupidly like in a horror movie when the guy isn't supposed to get the girl yet. And then after that, what we'll say is that they just sort of grab this guy and they have their tense little standoff moment. I'm not crazy about the big helmet elites that design they introduced in this one. Again, you can see some of the Halo 4 sensibility with how they just fucking love making things bulky. Also, I really miss my torch. I hate piss vision. But I can barely see anything with that off, so... Actually, this room looks better with that off. We'll just keep it off. And Noble 6 is a badass, so he can do this. Psh! Who wants some? What do we got here? Bunch of grunts cleaned up? Very good. Oh no, they killed what's-his-face.
How long?
Question of my life. If the question is, when will the station be back online? 2 weeks, earliest. This is plasma damage. All major uplink components are fried.
2 minutes is too long.
Which is why I'm splicing into the main overland bundle to get you a direct line to Colonel Holland. You're in my light, Commander.
Find out what she knows.
Here we go. Now he speaks Hungarian because we... Again, like I said, why didn't he speak Hungarian?
Do you live around here?
Oh wait, no he doesn't. He speaks English. Well, anyway, just like, why is she being unreasonable in that last scene, both of them? Because they... Again, because we need to set up that encounter with the elites with the swords.
Friend of yours?
Father.
Shainalon. I'm sorry.
Why would you be?
Big man forgets what he is sometimes.
She just lost her father. She needs a full psychiatric workup.
She's not the only one.
Lock it down, both of you. Get her on her feet. The body.
Again, the idea of, like, the Spartans having characterization, you can see the seeds of things going very wrong here. But in this particular game, they exercise enough restraint for it to still work.
You wouldn't want to ground this place.
And they look alright with their helmets off, and it lets us see the striking, important detail, which is that, regardless of ethnicity, they all have pale blue eyes because they all went through the Aryanization procedure to become Spartans like the Master Chief.
May God help us all.
And yeah, I totally fucked up the pacing there, but that's the first level done. Winter contingency, whatever. The Covenant are en reach. Oh shit. very basic scene, but they do a better job of making it feel big than the, like, ridiculous Halo 5 asset storm where, like, every scene is a bunch of shit moving on the horizon. All of these stupid, elaborate, titanic robot monsters walking around on the horizon. Nothing in that game feels big despite that, while this game is very basic. You know, it's like the virtual equivalent of like matte painting almost, where you can just see that it's like, okay, like big, simple, static background and slightly more dynamic foreground, but it's all just like basic. You know, some of this is basically matte painting, where it's just like the skybox, and then under that, simple 3D models. Simple ergonomic stuff people do when they still are subject to real economic incentives.
My efforts to obtain relevant data on enemy forces have been unsuccessful. However, current defensive forces are insufficient. Oni has requested Team Noble's direct intervention to help secure Sword Base.
Alright, people. We're stuck with that ship for the time being. Let's focus on the hostile infantry. Give those troopers a hand.
Yes, how they...
You're out here. George, Emil, you're next. Get prepped.
Let's move, Lieutenant!
How they try to rationalize the Covenant fighting at this scale early in the game is that we are defending key sites. The suggestion is that the Covenant are potentially trying to grab important things on Reach. Hey, buddy.
Roger that. We're your strike team.
Got a few of these guys here. Hey, he's got a shotgun. Look at him go. There's a basic blue elite, but he looks a bit ugly because this is a late Bungie game. And they all very conspicuously do the George Costanza had his Twix taken movement. They were all Twix. That's what they look like every time they... Even before that was pointed out to me, I always thought that like the elites emote way too hard in this game because, I don't know, I guess they were really into the idea of the berserk state being like a constantly triggering thing. They wanted you to feel under pressure in this game, so they really turned up the elites as these like berserkers. But yes, back to the idea of the heroic scale. The point of the elites was always that like, yeah, grunts, and then like the one guy who's kind of your peer on the other side, and it's like you and him kind of are the people who matter in this, you're the heroes in this encounter, and then you have your marines and they have grunts who really just are kind of helpless, you know. You and the elites both share protagonist-scaled powers and are able to make these great decisive motions while everyone else kind of sucks, and they're kind of a highly dynamic set dressing compared to you. Very cool thing, but I think that was less appreciated by this point, what exactly it is an elite is meant to be. And rather interestingly, very similar enemies to the elites exist in the game Unreal, which I generally don't like. Where you fight the lizard men in Unreal, and they're like you, they like try to like circle strafe around you and dive and roll and just like spam shots while circling you. But they aren't really interesting to fight because without heroic scale, that just means you have an enemy who just tries to like circle strafe and juke you, and he has a lot of HP, and it's just kind of whatever. But it becomes much more interesting when you and the elite are both trying to exercise effective control over this highly dynamic field of variable parts and all these dynamic parts and variables going off all around you, and you both have fairly elaborate interactions with them. That you and the elites will both throw grenades at each other, dodge, you have overshields. They have the more interesting weapons, they control vehicles, and in Halo 2 onwards they even hijack vehicles like you. Plasma rifle's okay. Instead of the like sheer iridescent shell, it has that kind of honeycomb pattern over it, but I don't hate that. Whatever. Also, I think there's no dual wielding, which is fine. Again, this game is about powering you down conceptually. The DMR, if you use it scopeless, is so boring. It's like the pistol in Halo 1, but even more so. And it's just kind of ugly and plain. Again, I think that this quality of power, they should have just shoved that in the assault rifle. That would have been awesome. The assault rifle should be this caliber, but I just full auto them.
Sword control, I see a target locator. Any artillery support in the area?
Limited, but we'll prioritize.
I don't remember how this works, but we'll give it a shot. Oh yeah, and these dumb things. Cape shit power, activate! Again, you can see that the guys who made this were capable of making Halo 4 and 5. Weapon caches. Get your tactical loadout and move out. Alright, here we go. How does this work? I appreciate that they just fucking lock on rather than making me have to, like, fully... have to, like, predict where they're going. Oh. Whoops, they're shooting at me. Alright, get this out again. Oh, I can armor lock when they fire the thing at me. Yeah, armor lock is kind of soy, but also kind of cool. We'll see if we can do anything dumb with it. Those guys didn't make it back to base. This is the edgy, grimdark Halo Reach. Not everyone makes it home, buddy. Oh, it's recharging, I see. There we go. Whoop! Yay, we did it. You see, that's how you armor lock. And there's a nice little dynamic piece of prop play where we call in the thing from orbit and it actually comes down and blows them to hell. This kind of stuff where you have like one ship in the background and a few like Banshees and Hornets fighting each other in the skybox. That's clearly what they fucking loved. Like, Halo 5 is like all of that times 100 for the whole game, to the point where it seems like that's where all of the budget went, and why making this game was not practical. They basically ruined themselves doing this.
The old Farragut station has its own comms array. That should bring us back.
But yeah, again, heroic scale means Jason Jones thinking about what is fun. He understands, I believe, that you have to be able to rationally consider every part of the scene for it to be compelling to engage with. You can... basically, in terms of like scenario construction, this is true of Myth, this is true of Marathon, it's true of this game. It's basically, if it's there, can I exercise agency over it? Can I take it into account to play through this scene more effectively? That is the, like, have they done a good job building the game test? Have they built something that will be fun to play? And I don't know if that's considered, like, good game design theory, if Matthew Matosis has figured that one out in his laboratory or not, but, yes, that is how I would basically define the fundamental appeal of most, like, military and action games. If they've done a good job, it's basically... any element that's present, can I do something interesting with it? Do I take it into account to play better or do something? I'm not saying that you aren't allowed to have anything be superfluous. You can't really err in that direction, except in terms of, like, scaling your production beyond reasonableness and potentially creating something ephemeral, unsatisfying, and shitty. Buddy, let me drive. Yeah, you get on the gun, buddy. I've decided you're a fucking natural. Oh, they don't give you Marine health bars when they get on the gun anymore. That's... again, that's creeping Call of Duty realism. It's just less fun, I think. Again, it's another variable. It's a sign that they didn't understand that the fun is in taking advantage of variables. The health of your crewmen in Halo Combat Evolved is something you will actually take into account when playing. It will influence the decisions you make as you're going. Part of the 8 seconds of fun cycle is I take in everything that's going on and I make a decision based on that, and one piece of information I'll take in is, like, how healthy are my Marines? If I, like, charge that group of Covenant over there, will my Marine gunner die? Get the generators, boys! We'll take one of those. I like human guns. And we need one of them. Whoops. Let's go, people. See, I don't know if my gunner got hurt, but I think Cat is invincible. So it's kind of the trick of the construction of this level, I suppose, is that even if your Warthog is getting... If you still have the Warthog alive, but you lose your guy, Cat can get on the gun, so you have an invincible gunner, which I don't hate. And again, they wanted you to be part of a Spartan team, and feel like you're not doing that lone wolf stuff anymore. But they also understood that a true team-based Spartan game would be fucking terrible. So they give them to you, like, one at a time. You alternate, but mostly between one squad mate and none, which is the correct way to do this, I believe. As far as there is a correct way. And our army trooper guy doesn't look bad strapped up on the gun there. I think they did a pretty good job designing them. He doesn't look out of place next to the riding on the relatively classic Warthog. If anything looks out of place here, it's probably the bright blue armor on Cat. I don't know if you knew, it was the original plan that every Spartan's armor looks exactly like that of the Master Chief. While, if you're wondering, the original Spartan 3s didn't get that armor because they were more expendable, there were more of them, they just wore kind of... like, I think the idea was that they wore something sort of like the Spartan undersuit without the shield, like it's more resistant to what's coming their way, but if they get shot seriously, they're gonna die is the idea. Let's take this, these are always fun. They messed with the colors on this, it's not that nice earthy brown anymore, but whatever. Hit the next thing. Fancy tech embedded in this rustic fishing shack. Oh, did you take my car away?
Comms array up and running.
Sure, take it for a spin. Shotty.
Now let's head for Airview Base and get that AA gun online.
Oh, they want me to...
This is sword control. Thought you could use some mobile firepower.
Always. Take that hog, Six.
What is going on?
Just keep me steady, I'll take care of the rest.
Was I not meant to take this Warthog before? I'm confused, but whatever. Maybe they thought it would get blown up, I really don't know. Again, if you play this game yourself as intended, you don't loiter like me and you play it with a kind of the fast rhythm of a Call of Duty game, but each scenario, like look at this whole area, you can exercise agency over and have fun with it, unlike how an area works in Call of Duty World at War, where it's just screaming and a grenade pile until you hit the enemy's stop respawning trigger. Basically, you're meant to play this game faster, as in like bouncing from point to point faster. It's still fundamentally on a fighting level, structured like Halo, which is why it works. What I mean to say is just, this game fundamentally works pretty well, and if you play it as intended, you don't stop like me. What might seem like weird, disjointed logic in what you're doing if you just watch this will probably feel better in the actual game, so if I haven't said already, if you haven't played Halo Reach, I think you should really play it yourself rather than just watch this video I'm making. I think that you will really... There is a fair bit to enjoy here, or you will at least be able to better appreciate the whole intended experience if you play it through with the kind of... Again, just there is an intended flow to this thing more than Combat Evolved. It really demands that you basically keep up with and get invested in a ongoing interconnected series of events, and so it will undermine the impact if you play it like me or just watch these videos and watch me ramble around for an hour in each level. Reach is a fast Call of Duty campaign structured game, and you're meant to play it like that. But each little area you stop in, you still fight through like Halo. It's a nice little in-the-middle arrangement that they only successfully landed once. And what a nice area. Again, this is what science fiction looked like for a little while, like more than the kind of anti-nerd Hollywood rationalization I talked about. For some reason they were really into these like rainy cliffside vistas and stuff. Again, this looks like Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and Raised by Wolves, and probably a few other things, various shitty TV shows I don't care about. This was the look. What's that Tom Cruise, Nikolai Costa-Waldau movie? Oblivion. That also looks like Halo Reach. Go look up the movie Oblivion with Tom Cruise. It's interesting what was going on with science fiction around this time. This is what was aesthetically in the air. And of course, things would only get worse from here, so, you know, enjoy it while it lasts. But this particular cultural moment, I don't hate it. We're in these, like, weird Icelandic, craggy, watery, drizzly areas, and it looks nice. Whoa! Look, our worthy adversaries, the elites, are trying to use our tools against us, but it didn't quite work. I think they got a bit confused in trying to coordinate to operate that warthog, but oh well. And you may have noticed that a fully charged plasma pistol shot disables vehicles in this game. There are actually exploits that revolve around doing that, I believe. Did that flip on its own, or did Cat do that? Let's just clean him up anyway. Yeah, this whole elite ranger suit they wear for so much of the game, maybe that was someone's idea of, like, cool, but the enclosed elite helmet I think looks a bit silly outside of space. And another thing to activate. Let's go, team. Don't steal my warthog, please. And that's the concussion rifle, the most obnoxious weapon in the game. Whoop! Get in, people! Oh, we turned on a gun. Is that going to shoot them out of the skybox? Yay! Oop. My friends and I were saying while observing some old footage of Halo games, that's the lost technology at work, the power to animate a phantom exploding. Oh, they're giving me another warthog. Alright, that one has a more interesting gun. I guess it's on. Okay, you guys take that one, we'll take this one. Now, is this meant to be a rationalized Gauss cannon? I think so. We'll see when our man fires it, though. Yep, that's the... Again, this is like, I think, a post-Rob McLeese design. Where it was like, yeah, Halo's future tech used to be understated, but now because their ideas of... They're trying to be more self-consciously mature, but it's a more puerile idea of what maturity is. If I didn't already say, I think that's kind of Halo Reach summed up in a sentence. That's how I would describe this gun and so many other things about it, whereas like, yeah, Rob McLeese, the original... I presume he's the one who designed the Gauss cannon or decided what that should look like in Halo 2. That thing is a relatively modest, badass weapon, you know, it doesn't look like the giant evil-ass rape cannon 9000. It's a very careful, particular-looking thing. It's understated, like how humanity builds everything in the old games. You know, it's just this little kind of matte gray, brown, yellow, green, whatever color it is. It's just kind of a box and a tube, and it fires out this, like, sheer death thing. It's quite cool. And then, in this, they just had to make it like, yeah, okay, it looks like when the soldiers in the Transformers movies by Michael Bay pull out some weapon, and some guy goes, "This is the experimental XM77A9 cannon." And then, I don't know, the fat guy from Kangaroo Jack goes, "What did he say? What the fuck?" And then he goes, "Bzzz!" and it blows something up and they go, damn! That's where we're at, whereas, you know, the original Gauss canon does not make me think of Transformers by Michael Bay, so it's probably a bit better. Not even to say that that's the worst movie ever, but, it's, not quite on the Halo wavelength. And why did they give us this thing for like 30 seconds just to immediately put roadblocks in the way? Or can I break them? No, I cannot. Okay, game, you win. No fun allowed. Oh hey, look how many flying things there are now. Like a weird swarm of bugs. I didn't even get it. Good job, team. Oh yeah, you can blow the visors off grunts to make them less sympathetic in this game. Look at his ugly little alien spaceman face underneath that endearing little mask that you always kind of took as the design. It's a very charming thing, reminiscent of Marathon without really drawing a lot of attention to it, that really all of the Covenant look like you can't really tell their armor from them, like where the armor ends and the alien begins, like the Four and the floaty guys, you know what I'm talking about. The other aliens in Marathon. The Spht, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, like the grunts, it's always been like the triangular back and the face mask, that basically is them, like you aren't meant to see them with it off. A very interesting comment on kind of general designing a kind of character with an archetypal look. Something that John Blanche said about the Space Marines, who he basically designed, as far as I know. The Space Marines from Warhammer 40k, John Blanche was one of the original concept artists for all of that. What he said about the Marines in their newer incarnations, he says like how they draw them with their suits off and they take them off in various Warhammer related works. What he says is, they don't take off their armor, they are their armor. Or he said that, he died recently unfortunately. But I thought that was a very funny and intelligent thing of him to say, that Space Marines are their armor. Like, yes, fundamentally, that is what they are. Like, the grunt is his face mask, the grunt is his, like, gas canister thing. Like, no, the design is inseparable from that, and spiritually, like, what he is meant to embody, the idea of what a grunt is shaped like that. You do not find the true grunt if you take that off. Like, no, the shape of that is the true grunt. Anyway, we have to keep going. What's Cat carrying, an assault rifle? Oh, that elevator rendered a bit funny. Yes, physics were behaving a bit strangely to get us up there. And, like in, ODST, we're in an Oni base now. They seem to like that idea a lot. There's their little triangle logo thing, and what's this, a metal detector? Oh no, it's like a biometrics thing, and it knows who we are. Because we're the mysterious Lieutenant Noble 6, we just get in as a matter of course. Oh, you're a cool Black Ops operator guy. You're Halo Modern Warfare. Of course you're welcome in Oni. Oh, and here's the rest of the team. Oh yeah, and this like one-off mechanic in this game that I really think should have been like the basis of Halo moving forward, because it's such a fun idea. And it is basically lifted from Half-Life 2, the idea of recruiting Marines, it basically means that they get flagged as specifically following you and their name appears in the bottom so you can track them. And you can do that with 3 Marines at a time on certain levels. Again, this is very like old Bungie core in the sense of like, again, they're just making you take what's happening more seriously. I think possibly it came from an awareness that these games become kind of a clusterfuck when you add like 6 invincible Marines at once, so to kind of re-ground you in the presence of your allies rather than turn them into a like incoherent Call of Duty haze, they created this system of marking a few Marines and basically making them your buddies so that you take them seriously and don't start taking the presence of Marines for granted. I think there probably was, on the part of someone at Bungie, an awareness that they were basically at risk of ruining the presence of friendly NPCs by putting in too many, so they said, okay, here's what we do. We flag a few. In any Marine heavy sequence, we flag a few and give them names so that the player, you know, really thinks about the fact that they are there. There's just a constant reminder on screen. By the way, you're like part of a movement. None of that lone wolf stuff, remember? Even though the construction of the game ultimately does just incentivize my driving forward and killing everything myself without thinking about it. Like, I have 4 Spartans with me, and if I'm really getting my ass kicked and I pull back, I imagine they might take over and clean up one gunfight for me, but really, the way they built this game, they want you to... They made a Halo game, they want you to play Halo.
Kill those banshees. Upstairs, Lieutenant. We need those long swords in the air.
And yeah, what is happening in the wall right now? Why are there like 500 banshees flying around and attacking like 2 buildings on reach? The answer is basically, don't think too hard about it. Like, I don't think I ever worked out, and I don't think there's really anybody who goes to bat for this game like I will over particulars of Halo Combat Evolved. Like, I don't really think that there is a nuanced art-faggy position here. I think that Halo Reach is just kind of conceptually absurd at its base in many ways. This whole opening act of the game where, like, one Covenant ship floats over the planet and just initiates these kind of petty skirmishes which humanity meets with equally insignificant force in the relative scale of the whole war. That's just how Halo Reach is. Whee! Good job, Emil.
Noble team, longswords are inbound and ready to push. Orbital defense is standing by to take the shot.
Ooh, here we go, orbital defense, the war is scaling up. Yeah, this is a spaceship war, but a few guys on the ground were apparently instrumental. Oh hey, we did just blow it up.
Beautiful, ain't it? Someone should take a picture. Nice work, by the way.
I aim to please.
5, 6, get down to the science wing. Dr. Halsey wants a debrief and command saying we're all hers.
Repeat? Sounded like you said Halsey.
I did.
Copy that, on our way. Don't need command to tell me. Been all hers half my life.
I requested your assistance, Commander, and do not need a report on events that occur on my own doorstep. What I do require...
Oh yeah, Dr. Halsey is in this game instead of Cortana.
George, it's been too long.
Mom.
What have you done with my armor?
Just some additions I've made.
Indeed. Visegrad Relay. Its data center was home to one of my xenoarchaeologists, Professor Laszlo Sorvad. Perhaps you could shed some light on his death.
If he was a civilian male in his mid-60s, He died with a Covenant energy sword through his abdomen.
Elites, then?
They engaged us as well. It was just after we found your scientist's daughter, Mom. She was hiding in the,
Irrelevant. The elites. Tell me more about them.
3, Zealot class. One got by us. The leader, from the looks of him.
Zealots. You're certain?
Their armor configuration matched.
Shield strength, too.
I gave the order not to pursue. Our primary objective was to get the station's relay back online.
Your primary objective? Commander, are you a puppet or a Spartan?
Ma'am?
There are those at ONI, myself included, who believe the Covenant dispatch elite advanced teams to hunt down artifacts of value to their religion. Survivor accounts suggests such teams are small, nimble, and almost always Zealot class. No doubt they came to the station for the abundance of ONI excavation data stored there. And you let them get away.
Data retrieval was not a command directive. Even had we known, we had other more urgent matters to
Carter looks oddly like a Mass Effect character now that I think about it. Not any particular one, he just looks like one from that game.
Made reference to a latchkey discovery. Latchkey. Not a word he would use lightly. So let's hope that the data module your Lieutenant Commander stole contains it.
Cat?
Before you ask, I was alerted the moment you attempted to access its contents, as I am with any unauthorized tap. That data is classified Tier 1. I could send you to the brig for interfering with my work.
Maybe you'd like to join her.
I'm sorry?
We're currently under emergency planetary directive, winter contingency. I'm sure you're familiar with the punishment for civilian interference with the Spartan deployment.
Are you threatening me, Commander?
Just making a reading suggestion, ma'am. Let's move, noble team.
Now, I guess I have to give them credit. More than I remembered, they wrote in new justifications to reframe the war on Reach. Like, there's that whole thing there. Oh yeah, the Covenant are looking for something, that's why they haven't vaporized Reach. And fair enough, I guess, that's much better than nothing. It is still weird that, like, they show up in drips and drabs and fight, like, 10 people at a time on the ground instead of overwhelming the planet when they decide they want something that's down here. Breaks over, Roach. These... You might find them offensive or obscene, but I find these Call of Duty mission intros charming. Look at this, like, point of view shot from Nobody, where it's like a cameraman is following Noble Six along the cliff. You might say it's stupid, but I just think it's utterly charming how hard they were trying with this game.
Recon Team Bravo reporting in. 3 and 6 in position. It's starting to get crowded up here, Cat.
At this point, the pretensions feel naive and charming.
Copy that. When Cat runs an op, direct action is always necessary. Here, you may need these. High velocity, armor piercing. They'll take the hat off an elite at 2,000 yards. And they ain't cheap.
Yes, this is a... Again, you play with one squad member for most of this game because the whole squad, Halo fundamentally doesn't work with lots of invincible guys roaming around. So this game, clearly, they built around that. They give you one buddy at most. Lots of the time you're there by yourself. You really have to wonder how Halo 5 was possible. But again, rather than being a, like, abstracted good game design thing, it's really important to understand that the whole organic operation of people who understood fundamentally what worked because they had been rolled into this operation over the production of several video games and were all working on one shared understanding. That is more important, you know, ultimately the team you make, the culture you make, than abstract the idea that, like, oh, we have a better idea of what a game is on paper and that's how you get better video games made. Like, no, it really is about human material and then organization and then, you know, conceptual planning. That is important, but ultimately that's downstream of human material, where basically more sophisticated and interesting people will, I think, innately have more compelling ideas. Hey, Jason Jones is, I believe, the best American video game designer of all time. And that's not because he went to video game school, or even because he went to video games. It's because he is, frankly, probably the most interesting American who has ever wanted to make video games. Serious question. If not Jason Jones, who? He really is just the man. Everyone else sucks. They are, compared to him, uncultured, stupid, lacking in ambition, just these kind of idiot, deracinated serfs obsessed with toys and nerd shit. Jason Jones was kind of one of the last embers of genuine culture in America who happened to end up in video games, so go figure he is the best at it. I do think that if we, went back in time and grabbed, a bunch of... You grab, Isaac Newton, Thomas Jefferson, whoever you want, all of these, very notable men from history. You grab fucking Shakespeare, and you, clone them and raise that clone in, the 1950s and ask them to make a video game in, 1990. They will make something better than, a product of, YouTube Video Game Design University. That may have sounded odd, but I'm just trying to make the fundamental point here that I believe character is really just everything. Human material, and then human organization and incentives, and then design. Why did Halo 5 go to shit? Not because they needed to watch a Matthew Matosis video on satisfying first-person shooter design. Halo 5 went to shit because basically all of the real humans were mostly gone, and the people with brains who were left in the operation were organized in such a way that this machine just builds inertia and resists individual will and empowers these cretinous boardroom types and weird, striving title graspers. So yeah, nothing good is going to come of that. That is more important to understand than, trying to pretend the game was at any point this abstract thing on paper they were realizing. You listen to Joseph Staten talk about the destruction of Halo Infinite's production, which he had to go in and save. It's all just, structural level problems. He says, yeah, we didn't have time to, rethink how the game was going to be. The whole thing, what I was brought in to ultimately do, what I decided my job was just reorganizing this team's workflow and structure and negotiating with their bosses to the point we could even finish a fucking game. And that's about where video games are at in general right now, so that poor woman who's been brought in by Microsoft to basically shoot all of their studios in the head, that's very necessary work, but it's not sufficient to save Microsoft's gaming operation. What they have to do next, what they would never be allowed to do, is that you basically have to organically grow new teams. You have to, again, the right human material in the right places, the right human organization. The best configurations of that emerge naturally. You can't get these autistic forest arrangements where you just kind of drop an army of people who don't know each other into a broad studio shape and expect good work to happen. No, Bungie worked so well because these guys have been working together for 10 years or longer, some of them. They knew each other, everyone kind of found their place in the organization, and they all had this understanding of who each guy was, what they could do, what they could all offer, how to bounce off of each other productively, and ultimately economic incentives were driving them, how to work well with each other towards getting a game they could sell finished. Those kinds of organic incentives all piling up together, the countless little second-order effects of all of that coming together are the difference between, taking 3 years to make Halo Combat Evolved and taking 7 years to make Halo Infinite Season 1, and then you have to cancel the whole production of anything longer than that, because of course Halo Infinite was meant to be so much more, and we got the kind of emaciated skeleton of that poor game. A real studio that works, you have to grow it. It's an organic network of human intentions and relationships. people have been kind of sifted into where they belong. They form this very efficient organic network if all the right incentives are in place. You compare how, like, From Software built their two teams, how Nintendo runs them, and what Microsoft does. It's so obvious that they just tragically... Basically every American operation went all in on the idea that game production is ultimately like setting up a factory in Mexico that will make cars or something, whereas like, no, you're running like a creative artisanal workshop. Maybe you can kind of shartify and industrialize the production of FIFA, but I would imagine even that gets worse if you do so. But like, you try to take something like Halo, which is very fucking artisan, like borderline auteur, and you try to basically sweatshop the production, like, you know, move the car factory to Mexico or China. It doesn't work. And speaking of outsourcing to China, lots of those studios exist now, and due to the lack of DEI shit, Chinese autistic tree studios can finish a video game, but of course, all that they're good for is just stamp pressing. They can't actually make anything new. If they try to be creative, the result is Crimson Desert, but most people don't even bloody dare to ask them for that. They just say, like, make a video game that already exists, but do it in Unreal Engine 6, and, you know, it'll just sell on brand recognition to the hat insides. And that's all we dare to do anymore. We are a conservative, retracting society. Entropy is winning. Yeah, that was meant to be a little send-off for the end there, but it turned into a little pessimistic Anthony jumps over rocks screed on how bad the state of gaming has gotten, unfortunately. But yeah, we're at almost 2 hours now, so I guess I'll call this one here, and I hope we laid out some interesting ideas for you. I'll go tune up my audio levels, decide if I have to go cut anything, and yeah, we'll put this one up and we might just blast through Halo Reach very quickly. Or, you know, relatively quickly. I might spend an hour on each level. We'll see how long it takes me to get off all these thoughts that are in my mind, but I would like to probably play through a few levels at their own pace and actually appreciate their fine construction as we go a bit more. We can talk about this level's nice skybox a lot, why don't we? We've had our conceptual episode, we'll talk about all the nice points of the game going forward. Or we'll try, I never plan these in advance, we'll see what happens. But that's it for today, thanks for watching, hope you liked. Comments always please me a lot, so please, anything you want to say or ask, go right ahead, I look forward to reading them. Thank you very much.